In this module, we're going to start to focus on modify tools in AutoCAD and how they can help us make our drawings a bit faster. Move, copy, and rotate are three modify tools that all work fairly similarly. All of the tools require for you to first select the object you want to modify, and then the tool can be used. You can also select your geometry prior to starting the tool to skip this first step. And we're going to see how this works, and we're going to start with the Move tool. I'll show both ways that you can work with the tool. First, without anything selected, starting the tool. I can start the Move tool by either coming up to the toolbar and clicking on the Move button, or use the keyboard shortcut M. So once I click on the tool, I'm being prompted in the command bar to first select the objects that I want to move. I can do this by clicking on each piece individually, or by using my cross and my window selections to select multiple pieces. Whatever you select will get highlighted in that blue color, and once you have selected all of the pieces of geometry you want, you'll either hit enter or right click. We can see our command bar has now moved us to the second portion of the command prompt, in which it wants us to specify a base point. So a base point is where you want to hold your object by. So whenever you are thinking about the base point, you want to think about where you are planning to move your object. So for example, if I wanted to move it so that this point right here on this line sat nice and comfortably right on that endpoint, it would make most sense for me to select my base point of this endpoint, and then I can move it to snap to that endpoint. Now, let's do another example with Move. This time, I'll select my geometry first and then start the command. So I'll first select this circle. Let's say I want to move this circle to be on the same center point as this polygon here. So I'm going to first select my object, and then I'll start the command, either using the keyboard shortcut or the button. This time I'll use the keyboard shortcut M, enter, and we can see that it skipped that first step of select geometry. Now I accidentally moved my hand while it's typing, so let me just end the command with escape, and I'll select my circle first, M, enter, and it skips that first point of select your objects, and it goes right to specify base point because I already had my geometry selected. So again, I want to think about where I'm moving it to, and I can click on that center point for my base point. And if I want the center of this polygon, it doesn't technically have a center point. So what I'd have to do is hold Shift and right click and say I want the geometric center, and then it'll show a snap point for the center of this polygon. Now another way we can use Move is we can move based on a specific distance. So again, I'm just going to highlight geometry that I want to move. So I'm just going to draw a cross selection all around that. Start the Move command with the keyboard shortcut M, enter, specify a base point. In this instance, it's not going to matter too much, so I'll just click on this one, and then I can move my cursor in a direction I want to go, and then type in a distance I want. So I'll say I want to move 16 units to this left, and it'll move it over 16. So there are several different ways you can use the Move function. Now, the Copy tool works a lot like the Move tool, in which you still have to select your objects, and you can select them either before or after starting the tool. And then you can grab objects by a base point, and you can then move them to different places, either based on specific snap points or based on distances. The main difference with copy is that the original is going to stay in that original spot versus move where you still only have one object and you move it around. So let's look at that and just do a couple of little examples with copy. So the copy tool is located right up here, and it is keyboard shortcut CO. So I'll do an example first without selecting geometry. So I'll just click on the tool, and it's asking, what do you want to copy? And I can select multiple pieces if I want to, or I can select just a single piece. I can window around pieces if I want to. I'm just going to make a copy of just this one line here. And then to move on to the next step, I can either hit enter or right click. And now it's asking to specify a base point, which again, that means a point you want to grab it by. So I'll just grab it by this top endpoint. And then where do you want your copies to land? So then I can click on specific endpoints, or I can also move my cursor towards a direction and then type in distances that I might want. So I can say I want to go over 2, over 3, 4, 5, and I can just keep making copies that distance away from the original base point. And once you're all done with the copy tool, you'll hit escape to end the command. So again, the other thing you can do with copy is you can select your geometry beforehand, just like with move. So if I highlight several pieces, I then can start the command. This time I'll use the keyboard shortcut, which is CO. It's 2 letters because C is already taken by circle. And I'll hit enter, and it skips that first step of select objects because I already had objects selected. And so now it's asking me for a base point, where I can click where I want to grab my object by, and then I can select where I might want to put the copies, or I can move my cursor in a direction and type a distance. Enter, and it'll make copies there. And again, once you're all done, you're just going to hit escape to end the copy command. So copy can be very helpful for when you want to make something that has some symmetry to it, or parts that are similar to each other. Rather than drawing them out multiple times, you can just draw it once and then copy it into place in the different places that you want. Now, for the last tool we're going to look at in this video is the rotate tool. And so rotate will take your object and it'll spin it around a base point. So it works similarly to move and copy, in which the first step is to select geometry, which you can select either before or after you start the command. So I will show it both ways. The rotate tool is located up here, or keyboard shortcut RO. So I'm first just going to click on it to start the command, select my objects. So I'll window around several pieces and it'll highlight them in blue. Once I have all of the geometry I want to rotate selected, I'll hit enter or right click to move on to the next step, which is to specify my base point. So this is the point that's going to be stationary when you rotate your objects. And you technically don't have to select it on your object. Same thing with move and copy. Your base point could be off to the side somewhere, but more often than not, our base point is on our object somewhere. It's usually one of our object snaps. So I'll just click on that object snap, and then I can move my cursor around and just snap to a polar tracking angle, or I could type in a specific angle. So for this one, I'm just going to rotate it around, click to say that's the degree I wanted it at, and then my original piece is gone because I've rotated it to be over here. So let's look at that again. This time I'll select all my geometry beforehand and I'll start the rotate tool. I'll use the keyboard shortcut R-O, enter, and we can see that we skipped that first part of the command because I already had geometry selected. So again, it wants me to specify a base point, and just to show you, this time I'll make my base point over here at the center of this circle, and now it's just rotating based off of that base point. So you don't necessarily have to select it on it, and then I'll type in rotation angle. I'll say I want to rotate it 15 degrees, which, whoops, I'm using the wrong keyboard. 15, enter, and it rotated it 15 degrees. So you can do it based on a specific angle or based off of kind of polar tracking two angles as well. And those are 3 modify commands that are very useful and helpful in drawings. Can you create pieces of geometry without using any of them? Absolutely. So for instance, rather than using copy, you could just draw something out multiple times. But the copy tool is just one way where you can get matching pieces a little bit faster. And copies also do act independently from each other. So while this right here is a copy of this here, I can change things related to the size of this circle. So for instance, I could click on these grips and stretch this circle out, or I can change the circle here in the geometry, and it's not going to have any effect of the circle, whether it's the original or not original.